Got typical problems in development, test, and release. There's a lot of problems, and they're all related. Kind of a pain chain here, where you've got development process problems. The development process isn't visible enough, and that's true throughout the testing as well as the release process too. There's always a desire to make progress more visible. Even with the best ALM systems, there's challenges there. And often that relates to just not knowing, the goodness of the artifacts that are being developed at any point in time. And then that results in releases not being very predictable. So that especially occurs when there's large mergers going on in big projects that are fairly complex, resulting in long builds, sometimes having to go backwards and revert major changes. And that results in releases taking longer than planned, and therefore products don't get out as fast as management and customers would like. A lot of pressure on getting them out, so ultimately that can often lead to release quality problems, and the quality is even unpredictable in many cases because you don't have sufficient measurements that are based on factual test results or sufficient coverage. Ultimately, too many customer-found defects. The typical reaction is, let's pour more money at it to try to solve the problem, and that results in excessive costs. So engineers end up working too much on bugs rather than creative, innovative work, which is a high OpEx, and management tries to fire more test equipment at the problem to improve the issues above, but it still ends up being expensive. So that's kind of the pain chain that EVCI addresses. Spirent basically plays in this big picture. It's kind of a DevOps view of the world, or continuous integration. I think that most companies kind of look at the whole idea of continuous integration as CI, but in fact there's a lot of components here. Really, CI is continuous integration plus continuous testing, plus continuous delivery when it's done right, all in the context of a continuous control environment and continuous configuration management. The neat thing about it, from a test vendor's point of view, is that all of this involves testing. Integration, the proof of integration is testing. If a merge doesn't occur if it doesn't pass, the proof is that it didn't pass a test, whether it's a unit test or a small functional test during an integration cycle. There's testing involved. And then, of course, during the testing cycle, there's a lot of testing involved. And, tiers of testing escalates from being simple, unit-level tests to functional tests to performance tests and even regression tests. And all that has to happen really fast and automated in an agile environment. And then finally, you've got a package to release, and there's more testing involved in the delivery process to make sure all the deliverables are, in fact, there and functional. So basically, this is what EVCI directly addresses. And Spirent is kind of, optimally positioned for this because we're a test automation company, and for this to be agile, it has to be all automated. So the idea is that, through EVCI solution, we provide process visibility, help companies with getting to market faster with quality, and not have to, spend too much than they had planned to do that. And it needs to be scalable because some releases are bigger than others, and so you need to be able to scale your resources depending on what's going into a particular branch or a particular release. Does that make sense? I probably shouldn't just do a monologue here. Any comments or questions at this point?
I don't know if you saw the presentation that Dave Meyer did, but he was talking about machine learning and large quantities of data. And I was thinking about this EVCI when I was listening to him because it seemed like it'd be a good way to help collect a lot of that data and then figure out what to do with it through these machine learning techniques. So a lot of companies I've worked at in the past have data scientists that look at all the machine data that's collected everywhere. And it's usually customer interactions on a web portal, if you're like eBay or one of these big online retailers. But this would be a really interesting thing to look at, the data that's collected through continuous testing.
Well, I would say that there's an awful lot of analytics going on here when this is done right. You know, at the integration level, you're trying to figure out, can you judge whether a merge is good enough to package or not, and if not, automatically decide to back it out and inform the people that need to, quickly fix it. So that's actually more than just reporting data. It's actually some powerful analytics, and automating that is critical if you want a fast cycle. Similarly, with the testing component, you've got to be able to quickly determine, are the test results good enough? It's not just pass or fail. It's, the profile of tests need to be appropriate depending on what changed. So it's very change-driven and very, automated in that respect. How do you choose which tests are appropriate for the particular changes? And then finally, in the delivery cycle, are we ready to release? So again, there's a lot of data analysis and analytics needed.
Cool.
And the level of automation, varies from organization to organization, but that's where EVCI can play. This is the solution and the key differentiators for the EVI solution. It's kind of the same diagram, different point of view. You've got a lot of continuous integration tools. The most popular, automation framework for CI is Jenkins, but there are lots of others. And then the testing, which, as I say, is overlapping with continuous integration and deployment. There's a lot of other tools involved in the deployment end. In the middle, Spirent has some pretty cool solutions. iTest is perfect for orchestrating testing, whether it be at the CI level, at the test, QA level, or at the deployment level of the whole DevOps environment. It allows you to, hook up with those environments through plugins, and I'll demonstrate the post to the Jenkins site in a minute. But of course, it also can orchestrate network testing through our test center products, security testing with Avalanche, mobile testing with Landslide, GPS and positioning testing with our PAWS products. And, most labs have non-Spirent test equipment involved in test cases as well. So it also can orchestrate third-party devices from iTest. EVCI also integrates a customized dashboard. It's customized because each customer tends to have different KPI metrics that they want to look at throughout the development and release process. And also these application lifecycle management tools that they want to have their data plugged into so that they can get visibility on the test results throughout the process of development, test, and release. The main differentiators of this product set is the fact that we can do network test orchestration for pretty much anything a network can do, and we can do it at scale, and all the different phases of testing, whether it's unit testing, functional testing, integration testing, performance testing, regression testing, all of that, especially combined with Spirent's suite of tools. We have a Jenkins plugin that makes it a lot easier for our customers or through our professional services to hook up to these different CD and CI tool environments. We have a pretty powerful professional support and training capability for CI and CT, and we have a customized dashboard to support change management and process control. I would say that Spirent internally has had a lot of experience with this. We have an extremely sophisticated internal CI, CT, and CD environment, and actually I was the manager of that until recently, so I'm very familiar with what we do internally. And we can orchestrate not only virtual, but also mixed virtual and real environments, because in real labs, for example, performance testing typically is going to be done in real physical equipment to get the top performance, but some of the application and functional testing can be done virtually. So it's often a mix of virtual and physical. And again, Spirent has a good capability to do both. We've implemented this in a number of solutions with certain customers. We haven't really announced it, and this is the first, I think, external viewpoint of EBCI, we actually have a release event coming up at the end of the month. The integration with ALM systems and test management is very important, so that you get visibility not only from metrics but also from whatever ALM system the customers are using for traceability of their processes. And overall, testing is the proof of the pudding in terms of change management and change control. So it's critical to be there at all of these phases of the whole CI cycle.
So I'm going to...
Any questions about this?
Yeah, I'm going to actually ask a question. I had to ask Mark what all these acronyms meant. So I'm wondering if you guys know what all these mean and if I should go over them for... we'll have a prize drawing. So who knows what STC is? Anyone? You can't work at Spirent. Okay, STC is Spirent's test center product line, and that's what we use to do what's called layer 2, layer 3 testing. So it does UDP, TCP traffic. There's different RFCs that we test, and usually it's used to run traffic through a switch or a network device, see how fast it can process packets. AV, anybody know what AV is? Come on, somebody.
Avalanche, I hope.
Avalanche, thank you. Avalanche is the L47 product. So STC does the 2 and 3 layers, and Avalanche does the layer 4 and up. So to do like your HTTP, different stateful. Actually, David, maybe you can, since you're here, 5 seconds. What's Avalanche?
Layer 4 through 7 stateful testing.
What are some popular applications that we use it to test?
It does over 4,000 applications. It will simulate Facebook, Hulu, Netflix.
Facebook. What was the second one? Google? Hulu, Netflix, Skype. So video.
Yeah, it'll even get down into the nitty-gritty with Facebook, like simulate mafia wars.
Wow.
Okay,
like cool. So that's Avalanche.
That sort of thing, yeah.
That's more than 5 seconds. Thank you. And then Landslide. Anybody know Landslide? LS. That is mobility. That was the one Paul was talking about. Does mobility emulation like handsets. Talking to the base stations, it'll emulate the whole end-to-end for a handset. Millions and millions of handsets emulated. So we have a lot of big telcos using that, cell phone carrier companies using that. Of course, the POS is the GPS positioning. DB is the dashboard. So again, what Mark was telling us is that all this test can be published to a dashboard. So there you go. There's your acronym. Can we see that? What's the next slide? Can we see that Jenkins plugin? Anybody using Jenkins today? 1, 2. Okay. Anybody know other people like customers, friends? Obviously. Okay. Oh, iTest. Yeah. Well, that was in the middle. Everybody knows what iTest is, right? That's the orchestration solution that runs all of those tests. So we're actually taking iTest to a big customer next week. I can't believe this guy hasn't been doing it. He sits at his desk for 8 hours a day and runs Spirent Test Center tests using the GUI, which normally we would do if you want to run a test, you fire it up, run a test, and you get the results. You're like, okay, I'm done. He does this 8 hours a day, and the reports go into a spreadsheet, and then he copies and pastes the data in the spreadsheet into a big tab, and he makes graphs out of it. And I'm like, dude, you got to stop. There's iTest. You need to use iTest to do this. It'll do everything you're doing for you, and then all you have to do is send the email, and it's done. I think it'll even send the email probably for him. So I don't know. He just runs iTest. So that's a good example of how automation can save you time. One of the things he was complaining about is, hey, I do this 8 hours a day, and sometimes I copy and paste the wrong stuff into the spreadsheet, and I have my users or my manager catches it, and I feel kind of silly, you know? And that's just bound to happen.
Just curious, what kind of APIs on your devices?
So iTest, well, we got some people here on iTest who maybe want to answer it, or I can guess.
Well, so I guess not the plugin, I guess, just in case, let's say one of us has the virtual appliance, virtual machine to test.
Yeah.
Like, is there a REST API in there? Is there an SDK to use it?
This is Pratap, by the way. Here, let me give you the microphone. We'll be right back, Mark.
Hi, my name is Pratap. I'm the technical marketing engineer for Spirent's virtual solutions. Two of the products that he mentioned, Spirent Test Center, that's layer 2 and 3, and then Avalanche that David mentioned, that's layer 4 and 7. Both these products have APIs that you can use. We have APIs in Tickle, Python, Perl, REST APIs.
So I guess it's important to know.
You can use these to reserve ports, start traffic, stop traffic, configure it in whatever way you want. This has been used for a decade, more than a decade.
So
by
is
NIMS.
it just REST, or do you have a Python SDK and libraries that we can use to? Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's all sorts of different examples depending on your coding language that you're familiar with, how to drive these. And that's why I mentioned this to the guy. I said, why aren't you automating this? And he said, I am. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, I wrote a script to run the test for me, and I just run the script, and it does the test. So in his mind, he doesn't have to use the mouse anymore to make the test happen. He's just running a script. To him, that was automation. And I said, yeah, but you're doing this 8 hours a day. Why not get a Jenkins plugin to figure out when the next build comes and run that script for you all day long, right? So that's the next step. That's called orchestration, really.
So when he does that, what will he do next?
Yes. Yeah, I think he's going to get a raise.
Just to close the loop on that, someone asked about APIs for virtual appliances, right? Spirent is virtual. The APIs that work for our hardware is exactly the same for our virtual.
I hope so.
Like Paul mentioned, our physical hardware runs virtualized software. Right. So we're not doing any code change for that. It's the same software that runs in our virtual.
Awesome.
Okay, so I'm going to put the phone back here by the speakerphone, and Mark, give us a little info there on the Jenkins plugin. Oh, by the way, I was just going to say that I tweeted. If you can't read what this says, I tweeted about this. So go search for NFD8 and Spirent, and you'll see some info coming out about the Jenkins plugin there, so you can read this for yourself. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the plugin has only recently been published to the Jenkins.org site, so you can see there's still some anomalies here that we're working on, but basically it is there and it does work. The plugin allows users to easily connect to iTest, even if they're not expert users, or you can, use other APIs with iTest. So the CLI or iTest RTE functionality can be programmed directly in your favorite language. But what this plugin does is it allows users that don't really want to even have to know how to do that to simply use a GUI to plug in the parameters into the plugin, and it will drive iTest, which in turn can drive all of our other products for testing whatever network situation you have. So this is the GUI for setting up the configuration. Very simply, just set up the path, or whether you're using the CLI or the RT interface. And you have to have a license, of course, so you plug in the path to the license server and the port for that. You can also, through the plugin, identify where your test result database is. So there's a GUI for that. You just tell it where the database is and how to connect to it. And in the actual execution, it'll tell you, how to configure it for execution and getting results. You can either use Jenkins, which is itself a dashboard, and you can get to our other dashboards through Jenkins as well. So that's the plugin. It gives you, it's just an example of a test report. I think I'm losing my voice. Sorry about that.
That's perfect.
And that in turn can be used to analyze results. Some customers will choose to simply look at the pass-fail results, and some will want to provide analytics to go further than that and actually automatically make decisions based on the results. So that is all there on the plugin at the moment.
Ready to download, right?
Questions about the plugin?
All right. So if you're using Jenkins, actually, I guess this would be a good time to share with you guys. We're making available to the delegates here some of this code. We're going to work with you on some projects that you have if you're interested, and so we could show you how this works in your environment. Saw a tweet about REST APIs and scripts. So do we want to clarify that a little bit?
Busted. No.
So there is actually a video. I don't want to show you this video right now because we want to get to our demo, but I can post it or something if you guys can't find it. There's a video of iTest actually recording a guy building an OpenStack topology, recording the REST API calls that he made, and then playing it back. And so in the example, he made a bunch of VMs and some networks and ran some tests. and he recorded it. Then he took that script and he changed the names of the VMs that were created in the script and ran it again, and it made new VMs with the new names. So I was blown away by that. So it has a REST API recording feature that can record and play back REST APIs. And then the other thing is we do have all sorts of different script examples if you're not a REST API programmer, where you can just write your Python, your Perl, or whatever. I think it's Tickle. TCL, anybody heard of that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, there we go. All right. Anything else, Mark? I think we want to get to our demo.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
there's a dashboard.
A little EVCI demo if you've got time.
If you got a demo, let's do it.
Okay, so I'll bring up a connection to an actual EVCI example. This one happens to be with one of our partner companies, Stratus Solutions. So this is a call from. So I've connected from my laptop in Southern California to Stratus in Maryland. This is an actual EVCI implementation. You can see a couple of jobs. There's an overall integration branch job, which can drive a build job, and if the build job's successful, that drives the start of a testing job. The key point here is that testing is integrated with the build environment, and if you look at an example of the build job, you actually get you can get a console output. It gives you the details of what tests were done. If you wanted to debug something if it went wrong, of course, everything passed in this case. So you get an example of a pass report of all the tests that were done for this particular job. Just to demonstrate that, this is just a simple example where the build and the tests were integrated through the plugin.
Awesome.
Okay. Also, we have an example here of a dashboard. Like I say, every customer has different preferences, so we're using a tool called Team Dashboard. And with small scripts, you can decide what you really want to use for process control. This is just an example. So in this case, the customer wanted to see, how long does it take to go through a release quality cycle, the test cases, how many failed, how many passed over a certain period of time, and that's true for different levels of testing. But that it's totally up to the customer what they want to see. They might want to look at build times, build success, test results, test success, number of times they've had to revert merges, and all of those types of things, which are process controls, and they can have different dashboard setups for whatever they're interested in. This is just one of our case studies from an actual customer that shows how, in this case, the customer had typically a 6-month release cycle, and in the early stages of implementing EVCI, they were able to get releases out, at double speed, and their minor releases much faster for simple bug fix type releases. They increased the number of features they could do per year because they were spending less time on just overhead release activity and process activity. They got their bug counts down, and I'm not going to go through the whole list, but you get the idea. It has a dramatic effect if a company has not got a agile, effective CI environment now. Adding EVCI can have a very, very dramatic effect on their development, test, and release processes for a lot of reasons, actually. This is an example of actual ROI demonstrated. In this case, it was last year, this project. It's already demonstrating pretty good ROI, and the projections are even higher. So the bottom line is, the benefits are quality, time to market, ROI, and process visibility, pretty much in the reverse order if you look at the pain chain, but essentially these are real benefits that derive from EVCI. And Spirent, because we're at the centerpiece of all of this process with testing, and testing is a key part of the entire cycle, Spirent can have a very major impact on a lot of organizations that just don't currently have it quite right. They don't have sufficient testing, and therefore these quick cycles tend to not really produce proper results, which can actually cause a cascade of problems if they don't, properly validate each stage before they go to the next one.
Yep. Yeah, that's what we were talking about earlier.
It has to be automated, or otherwise you won't get it done fast enough. Okay, that was my whole presentation. Any other questions?
I think that's good.
Did I see correctly that was went from like 1,200 and something bugs reported in a release?
Can you go to the statistics before and after EVCI screenshot? There were some questions. Maybe could you make it a little bigger, the full screen, so you can see it closer?
The slide before
the one before that.
I guess I didn't.
Slide 8.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Okay.
So critical defects from over 1,200 down to 10.
There were 1,257 defects before, and they were releasing every 6 months. And with the improvements we made, we went to a faster release cycle, and we brought it down to 10. And it says
that's the defects that actually
there's a little
ship.
footnote. This is the projected metrics as EVCI is newly deployed.
I think this is the kind of data that you really need to show people to really turn them on to doing this type of testing to begin with. You know, we were chatting here on Twitter about testing and people's aversion to implementing test processes and trying to break those bad habits. So right here, the metrics, you know, if you can influence those metrics, I think you're going to drive this as a...
Yeah, absolutely. And it has to be part of the development cycle. If you just have testing, like before you go to production, you know, it's kind of like, well, do we really have time? We'll just do a quick test. We got to get this thing out the door, and it adds a week maybe to your release cycle. If you build it into your release process, it's just no-brainer. And you don't have to start crazy big. A lot of agile teams are starting off just with one application. And if you build your testing in that one application, then you can start adding more applications into your agile process and do more testing. You can improve your testing also.
Very good.
Just start simple.
Well, you know what happens, right? I mean, when a product's released, if it's got a lot of bugs, and hopefully it gets deployed to a lot of customers, then, you know, you're advertising those bugs all over the place. So if you can get the number of bugs down, you're really going to dramatically reduce the total number of bugs reported by customers.